This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward. We're continuing our Twixmas week. And we've survived Christmas. We're getting ready for New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I think this is a great time to talk about crisis management.
It could be a great time to talk about crisis management. It is a fantastic job. It is a fantastic time to let out a big sigh of relief of all of you that literally stress around Christmas. And now it's over.
Well, this is one of my favorite times of year because I love the 12 days of Christmas. The whole idea of this season leading up to Epiphany, leading up to King Cake season and Mardi Gras. And for me, this is just really one of my favorite times of year is this Christmas to January the 6th. All the fun little extra things, the little daily gifts for each of the 12 days of Christmas. I absolutely love that. And always have a 12th night party at my house for Epiphany with the first king cake of the season. And we always have our Christmas Eve party, which is this kind of big formal thing with lots of people. And then our 12th night party is just a lot more casual and just friends getting together to have a great time without the stress of the gift giving and et cetera, et cetera.
For those of you that have a Griswold family type thing going on, it's only a few more days until Cousin Eddie leaves, so you can be really, really excited about that. My family is not that family. We are still relatively all in a close proximity of each other. We don't have the out-of-staters that come in, but I know I have several friends and I have lots of folks that I know that have mirror image families of the Griswold family and the Griswold extended family. And talk about crisis management. I just think they're an insurance nightmare if you're that type of family because the tree's going to catch on fire, something's going to happen. And it's just this incredible time of year. It should not be what it is, but for most people, it is stressful.
I just got finished listening to this really cool audio novella called The Secret History of Christmas. And it's one of those that's included with an Audible membership. And it's a real quick, like little 3.5 hour listen. And I had so much fun listening to that. I mean, it's everything from Good King Wenceslas to Santa Claus to gifts and carols and all such things. And it had this whole section in it about Christmas lights and insurance and how they were connected and how you used to actually have to sign paperwork that you wouldn't have Christmas lights in your house if you wanted insurance. And it was really fascinating to me, which got me excited because that means I am one step closer to being an official insurance nerd.
What's really crazy along those same lines, there's a lot of things that were originally created that were probably not very good. A real tree that dries up after you cut it from its roots.
And you put candles on it.
You have to kind of go, what were you really thinking? I mean, there's so many things in our history, Christmas and not Christmas, obviously, that makes you just sort of facepalm like, that's really what we thought was a good idea. The dried out Christmas tree and candles would have to be up there. And then, hey, let's put some lights on them instead of candles. That'll be safer until we figure out that those lights get really hot. We kind of create our own crisis in history.
I think you're having like a little CNC music factory, things that make you go,
yes,
thing. Is that where your head is?
Very much where I'm headed. For sure. That's why this industry is such an incredible backbone to our society, both economically and socially. And yes, I'm insurance nerd 101 here, but so many great innovations and great things that came from our industry saying, hey, that's probably not a great idea. Let's do it a different way. The risk management backbone in our history is so great. And I think we could just learn so much by studying it.
I've been a nerd for a long time, so adding one more layer to that, I guess it brings me joy. So there we go. Going back to the idea of crisis management, and we talk about it during Christmas week, kind of tongue in cheek, but I bring this topic up because I think this is something that you are masterful at. Not saying that because you're my boss, but saying that just from a true perspective of watching you never really letting things get to a crisis point. And that whole concept that you have of staying neutral, not getting too excited. But I've been talking to some different agents and they're asking me, what books do I need to be reading to help me with crisis management within my agency? Or what books can I give my producers or my CSRs to help them through this? And maybe it is the challenge of the hard market that's causing some of these little mini crises that are turning into bigger challenges as they snowball. So I would love for your advice to our agents out there that are listening to us on how to handle crisis management within our agencies.
I think number one is breathe. Our natural thing is that we are going to have something happen, or we are going to create this worry in our minds that this thing might happen. So the hard market's happening. I'm having a lot of remarket requests. I'm having a lot of busyness. People are tired. I get it. Your staff is tired. You are tired. You're having these conversations over and over again. But the reality of it is this thing that you create in your mind is probably not going to happen, or it's only going to happen on a small scale. That's the first thing that we need to do as agency owners is we need to be the example for our people. And that starts with, okay, breathe in and out. The sky is not falling. Most of us go down this path of the world is ending, the sky is falling, I'm losing my business. This industry, this business of independent insurance agencies, if a hard market causes your agency to shut down, go bankrupt, you were not a strong agency to start. There will be a pruning of every market cycle. There was a pruning in the Great Recession of businesses, agencies that were really heavy comp, really heavy general liability that were based on sales and payrolls. Yes, a lot of those very, very focused, undiversified, really leaning on one sector of the economy type agencies struggled to come out of those things. Agencies that are very monoline driven, agencies that have no relationship customer experience right now, those agencies are going to struggle in a hard market cycle and they're going to churn. And I think they're still going to be fine if I really had to place a bet. Even the worst of us, I think, are going to be fine in this hard market cycle. But what happens is it exposes our weaknesses, and then we go into this panic attack because we realize that we may not have been as strong as we thought we were, or we made some mistakes. And that's why the first thing you have to do is you have to breathe. You have to breathe, you have to take an assessment, and you have to make sure that you are the calm one in the room, because the reality is your people are going to panic because they're tired. And when you have a tired, exhausted person, they're more emotional. They're more out to react instead of respond. It's just a reality.
I didn't sleep very much last night, and apparently I was a bit snappish this morning, to use the Ally McBeal term. And my husband looked at me, he goes, "You didn't sleep last night." I said, "Yeah, not very much." And at our household, there's people that brag about not sleeping, and we're not one of those households. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to remember that all day," because it was one of those moments. I didn't even realize I was being snappish, but apparently I was.
I am more and more appreciative of rest, but our society is tired because we go, we work, we play, we do a lot of things except rest. I grew up with plenty of people that were like, "I'll rest when I die." Well, you're going to die a lot earlier if you don't rest. That's just a reality. Rest is great. I don't think we do that enough. I think it can lead to how we respond to a crisis because, again, we become very emotional.
I love asking questions. And that was actually a learned skill for me. That was not something that came naturally. But I think the question that we should avoid in crisis is, what did you do or what were you thinking? I think the best response to crisis is to start asking questions, but making sure they're the right questions and not exacerbating the problem by causing someone to go on the defensive.
The crisis point is not correction time. It's not reprimand time. This has been my experience. Number one, you need the people that got you there. Now, someone might have made a mistake. Something may have just gone wrong, or a combination of the things. But you need the people, and you need your most important staff, etc., to be at their best, and they will not be at their best if you're going to try to reprimand them during the crisis. That is not the time. The time for that is once the smoke is cleared, once you've made it through to the other side, then you take a look back and you go, okay, what went wrong? How do we keep this from happening again? How do we learn from this? Did something happen outside of core values? Was there a character problem that happened? That may result in you can no longer work here, the nuclear option, so to speak. But most of the time, it's not that. Most of the time, it's something just went wrong. There could have been a gap in process. There could have been a situation that needs to be learned from. And that doesn't make your people who were great right before the crisis, and you were so proud of them and you were so excited to have them on your team, they're the same person during and after that crisis. And we have to keep that in context, and we have to understand that from a leadership standpoint, our job is to help them grow, if at all possible, and hopefully you can do that by having them involved in fixing the crisis. We have had situations before, for whatever reason, we tend to attract cyber events, little ones, micro cyber events, big cyber events. I mean, we tend to be around that type of world for some reason, but our little micro cyber events are actually the ones that I've dealt with in the last year or so. And what I saw, two specifically come to my mind. And these little micro events were someone responding to someone that they thought was a different person and having some things compromised. Not customer data being compromised. This was just like somebody getting an account or somebody getting into a debit card type stuff. And it was this situation where in the response was calm. The response was, okay, this has happened. Let's go fix it. In both of those situations, the people that created the compromise internally were the point people for fixing the problem. They wanted to have that point position. They wanted to fix it. They knew the mistake that was made and they wanted to go fix the mistake. I'm looking at that situation going, okay, there's two ways you can go here. Get out of the way. You mess this up. I can fix it. Throw you to the side, which is most people's natural response. Or, okay, this has happened. Everybody take a deep breath. What's the next step? In that dialogue, you figure out, well, I've already done X. Okay, great. Go. Keep going. And their response to that was the fastest potential response because they were in the middle of it already. They got a little direction. They kept going and they fixed it. And in both situations, $0 were lost.
So a few times on the podcast, we have alluded to a grand cyber incident that we had in 2018. And when we say it was grand, it was most unfortunate.
That's a good way of putting it.
It was most unfortunate. And thinking back to this, and when we talk about it was rather grand, we're talking about the FBI and we're talking about cyber terrorist negotiations, and it was pretty massive. And no loss of data, no breach of data, all came out very well on the, it was a little expensive, but on the back side of it, it could have been much worse. I think ultimately how you led our organization navigation through that crisis was phenomenal and extraordinarily impressive. And we will write the book one day. And people won't believe it, but we will write it because truth is way better than fiction on this one.
Exactly. You can't make this stuff up. It's just incredible. It's going to feel like it's made up. It's going to sound like it's made up, but there will be nothing but truth written in there.
That's when we learned the term ethical terrorist.
True story. That was actually a statement made to me by a ransomware negotiator. Oh, I know these guys. I recognize their signature footprint. They're ethical. They'll do what they say. And I'm thinking, who calls a cyber terrorist ethical? What are we talking about here? The word terrorist and ethical do not go in the same paragraph. Anything. They don't remotely.
But it's so interesting, part of what my husband does is working as a white hat, and he'll have these guys pop up and he's like, oh my gosh, I hadn't seen him in 5 or 6 years. And it's so interesting to me how these guys recognize people just randomly by how they do something or how a piece of code is written, or, if they bring something back from 12 years ago, everything old is new again. So I find this world so incredibly fascinating as long as we're not in the middle of it.
I think it's in our DNA. I think human beings can't help it. It's our ridiculous human nature that comes into play here. On a lighter thought around that, Home Alone.
That's exactly what I was about to say. The wet bandits.
The wet bandits. Why? And it's comical, but it's true.
But I want you to kind of talk us through a little bit about what was going on in your head and how you were staying calm and how you were leading this team of government and insurance and negotiators. And you really were the glue that was keeping this together and keeping everyone calm and looking ahead to next steps constantly, even when we didn't know what next steps were.
The reality of that situation in that 30 to 45 day process that I would say from start to light at the end of the tunnel is, did I have my moments of worry? Did I have my moments of freak out, so to speak? And the answer is yes. But when did I have those moments? I had those moments privately. I had those moments away from the team, away from the people that I was talking with. I didn't sleep a lot for a few days, few weeks. The longer we went, my patience got more and more thin, and the more of a struggle it became to stay level-headed, even keel. That's my own assessment of the situation. Is if I was to have to repeat anything close to that, I have to implement more rest in there somewhere, because that's part of staying even keel is rest. And so I do remember particularly one couple of days, very, very critical couple of days that went on. We had built a pool, and I remember sitting out at the pool at 3 o'clock in the morning because I had a 4 a.m. phone call and I couldn't sleep, so I woke up. And I remember that moment vividly around just prayer, the time of just reflection and, okay, where are we? And just that stay calm kind of mindset, almost just let it go. Doing it in the middle of the moment and not having mental preparation is where most people go wrong. The mindset I had was in the moment with people, in communication. It is so important to keep client, your stakeholders, and your people, your internal people, your staff at the forefront mentally. You have to stay at that place when you're with them.
It's not eloquent. And my mother would die if she heard that I'm about to say this. But I was listening to a podcast 2 or 3 years ago talking about this. And she said, just get up and go pee. At the point that you are so overwhelmed that you're not sure what to do, just get up and go pee. And for probably 3 years, I kept a sticky note on my computer monitor that said #JustGoPee. And underneath it, it would say, what is my next best step? So I would be like, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to think about what is my next best step that I can take. And just stepping away from the computer, whether if I went to the powder room or not, but just stepping away from that situation. Like you said, breathe, but having a specific mantra of, okay, all I have to do is figure out what is one step that I take next. And that became key for me.
I think everyone needs a trigger like that. Mine was go for a walk. It really does help to calm you down and make sure that your next decision is a good decision.
You know, the crisis that we faced, this cyber challenge, it could have destroyed our business, but it didn't, because we put such an emphasis on staying calm, on taking care of our customers, on making sure ultimately doing the right thing for our customers, and trying to make sure that that client experience was the best possible even through the crisis. And I think that ultimately, whether we're talking about a technology company or our agencies, that's key, is being client-centric even through these big challenges.
Client-centric doesn't mean that your clients are going to feel like their world's fantastic. This was one that was hard. Was it extremely inconvenient for a few weeks for clients? Yes, it was very inconvenient. Disastrous? No, but inconvenient. Yes, we were client-centric, but at the same time, the client side of the thing still felt bad. It still was problematic for them, but we never stopped thinking about the client in this. There was money that had to be thrown at it. There was capital that had to be utilized. And that happened. We had to do that. Now, when we were doing that, yes, there was a spreadsheet of what was being thrown out. But even into the next 6 to 12 months, the amount of dollars that had to be thrown into it to prop up and see the company through to the light at the end of the tunnel to be able to overcome this. The reality of it is that smoke had to clear. And really, until the smoke cleared, I really didn't know what the real tab, so to speak, was going to look like. And when I got the final picture of that tab, it's like, okay, that's not great, but you know what? We can overcome this. And we did. And our customers did. And we learned, everyone learned immense amount of information and learned a ton of what to do and what not to do. And everyone involved is better today than they were in the first part of 2018, late 2017, before this thing happened.
Ultimately, you're an extremely confident person. What would you tell somebody that doesn't have that innate confidence or hasn't developed that when it comes to this kind of situation? Because we're not a fake it till you make it type of org. That's not who we are.
Number one, you can never be prepared for a crisis. Be the person that runs towards the fire, not away from the fire. And I think that is a mental decision at the moment. For all you Seinfeld fans, are you a George Costanza that knocks over the grandmother and runs out of the house? Or do you run towards the problem? I think you have to mentally prepare yourself. I'm not advocating that you sit around and think about all the bad stuff that might happen, but you have to prepare yourself to run towards the fire. And that preparation is extremely important. I got that early on in life. I'm very blessed to have that early on in life. And I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know that playing baseball for a certain coach was going to train me to not get too high or too low. I did not realize where that was going to lead me 30 years later in my career. And I would tell folks that it is a constant learned thing. And you just go. And you may fail in a crisis. And that's okay. We make errors and we strike out all the time. And I think it's being able to pick yourself back up and keep doing it, keep going to the plate and keep having more and more at-bats. You will get there. You will be able to overcome that. But be the guy that runs or the gal that runs towards the fire.
So one of my favorite movies is The Replacements. You know, I love sports movies and I love The Replacements. And there's a line in there that Gene Hackman says where he says, winners always want the ball when the game is on the line. And I just love that quote because it's not only a call to courage in challenging moments, it's a reminder that we have to believe that the success is going to happen in order for it to happen. And having faith in ourselves that sure, we may fail, but we're going to get the ball again and again and again and keep running with it. So that's one of my kind of mantras, is that whole winners always want the ball when the game's on the line.
I saw that scene just a few weeks ago, and I'm like, that's really good. That's really good. I can't believe this is in that movie.
Well, Happy New Year. I hope you have a wonderfully safe New Year's Eve celebration. Don't drink and drive. Call a cab. It is amateur drunk night. Please be careful. Have a wonderful celebration. What are y'all doing, Shane?
We are going to lie to ourselves like we do every year and say that we're going to stay up and watch the ball drop and do all that, and then we're going to be asleep by 10.
Well, there you go. I'm going to leave us today with this quote from Albert Einstein. In the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity.
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
Ready to get the ball rolling with your independent agency? Learn more at IntegraAgent.com. That's IntegraAgent.com. Thank you for joining us on IA Forward. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now, or learn more at IAForward.com.